Hello, this is Hector Vladimir. Today is the 21st of November 2023. Temperatures are quite warm for this time of year. They've been about 72 degrees, 70 degrees, 69, 68 degrees the last few days. So they've been holding steady in the warmer side. Maybe at night it has been dropping to the 40s degrees Fahrenheit. I wanted to jump today really quick into a topic that I have discussed in the past, and it is about racism and racial supremacy that occurs, that I have noticed very much in Japanese animation, in Japanese media, in Japanese games, in anime as they call it, in all sorts of media, whether it is in books, comic books, posters, characters, heroes, superheroes, any kind of cartoon character or media character. They, by and large, I'm talking about well over 99%, very few exceptions. By and large, overwhelmingly, they are, sadly to say, extremely racist. And I don't want to blame the entirety of the Japanese population or the creators, artists, but it is so blatant that 99.9% or better of their media excludes any kind of diversity when it comes to colored anything. Any character, person, depiction, even animals are 99% or better of the time overwhelmingly of Caucasian persuasion, of lighter color persuasion, of European persuasion. And I understand that the Japanese race as a group or ethnic group are by and large of lighter color when it comes to skin color, but I have noticed the overwhelming amounts of the characters, media, all of the characters and cartoons and movies that they produce, they exclude darker colored individuals. Even brown, you hardly see any individuals, but they are very sure to highlight, to include, to prop up, to make sure they rise to the top a particular race, a particular group, the European Caucasian group. They are sure to put them up on pedestals. They are sure to celebrate them, to put them as heroes, as main characters, as celebrated and very much appreciated characters, and they make sure that they are front and center. And, I'm talking people with very light hair, very straight, long hair for females, very straight hair for males. Many times they are light brown and blonde and of lighter colored eyes, blue, green, and many times even characters that are supposed to be even Japanese. They are often depicted with very light hair color, which is very rare for their culture, their ethnicity, their background, their race. Even light eye colors are chosen even for Japanese characters that speak Japanese, that don't speak any other language, that are supposedly born there, native there. They're depicted as blue-eyed, many times light-eyed, light hair, very, very light skin individuals with very Caucasian features, very un-Japanese features, with the larger eyes, the smaller noses, the small mouth, the very light hair and eyes. I mean, it is just horrendously blatant what they have done. I'm not sure where this vitriol for anything that is dark, brown, black, African, I don't know where the distain comes from, originated from, because they do not include people with any kind of coarse hair. They do not include, by and large. Yes, I'm not saying that there are no few exceptions here and there, maybe a handful out of the examples that I can bring up, but they, by and large, do not include any dark skinned individuals, any coarse haired, curly haired, coarse haired individuals at all, unless they are villains. Many times, demons, villains, very evil individuals, characters are depicted as dark with very small eye pupils and almost always with darker skin, darker hair, darker eyes. And this is very sad, very disturbing, very disappointing that the world, even Disney, has moved on past their own racism that was very prevalent in the past years, past decades. But yet, the Japanese studios remain, sad to say, racist and excluding of diversity and races that are other than Caucasian and perhaps maybe some that resemble Asian. I'm not sure where that comes from. I venture to say and venture to speculate that it may come from the war years or after the war, maybe when they first became artists, and the main population of people, kids that later grew up to be artists during the war or the years right after the war, immediately after the war, 1946, 1947, they were increasingly exposed to American culture, to Western culture, whether it be American, British, as the victors, the occupiers of the Japanese islands. Maybe they became fans, infatuated fanatics of Americans and perhaps their culture. They noticed perhaps an overwhelming presence of Caucasian Americans, even though there were many Americans that were also from other races, like African Americans, like indigenous Americans or native-born Americans, even Hispanics. Hispanic Americans were also participants in the war, but they were relatively a tiny minority at the time, so they perhaps did not come in contact with them. They perhaps thought less of them when they did. Again, Asian cultures, including the Japanese, have not been exactly very welcoming to outside races, including some Western races, but specifically races from Africa, races from other Southeast Asian countries. Historically, this is verified. Historically, this has been the case. Fortunately, this is what history shows. Their incursions and expeditions into Southeast Asia show just this, their disdain for Southeast Asian peoples, races such as in Korea, Vietnam, China, were racist, were frankly based on racism. And I have heard a few accounts of African descendants or people from African descent being treated differently, very unfairly, very discriminatory by some Japanese. I'm not going to say that's what the government holds as policy now. I am not sure what occurred as far as policy in the past, but I'm sure that's not the policy now. I'm not going to say that is the overwhelming sentiment among people, especially in the bigger cities now, but I am sure, just as it is in just about every other country outside of Africa, that distrust, disdain, hostility, and contempt toward, people of African descent exists in the Japanese islands. And this is evident in their products, their work, the accounts, the reports, their behavior. And I want to highlight and say here that it is very evident in their media, in the products of their media, whether it's movies, cartoons, Japanese animation, or Japanese books, or comic books, you name it, it's there. It's the discrimination, the exclusion, the lack thereof, any kind of diversity, and the almost fanatic and sickening worship of the Caucasian European race on all of their media is just disturbingly blatant. It is as plain to see as anything else. It is there. And I'm going to give you a few examples just so you can see the movie and think about this as you see the movie, perhaps, or maybe you have already seen it. But these are a few examples of the very popular and very influential Japanese animations that have very blatant racist innuendos of exclusion of anything African, and also a fanatic love and appreciation and almost adoring view of Caucasian races, specifically blonde, light-eyed, very light-skinned individuals, especially females. There is an infatuation, almost a sickening infatuation with that description, that figure, that depiction in very many characters and movies in Japanese culture. Here they are.